Hello and welcome back to the Horror Academic. I'm continuing with more black horror. Um, like I said, we're further exploring the movies of Horror Noire, the book and the documentary. One movie that came up quite often when I was doing my research was Tales from the Crypt, Demon Night. So first off, it's directed by Ernest Dickerson, who he was the cinematographer on a lot of Spike Lee's movies, and also he made the movie Bones that I reviewed a couple weeks back. So that was cool to know. So I looked that one up and picked that one up last night to watch. He also is very prevalent in the Horror Noire documentary. So I wanted to definitely check out more of his work. Now, I did not grow up with Tales from the Crypt. It's an HBO show. We didn't have HBO when I was growing up, so I knew of it and would occasionally get to see little bits and pieces of it. But I didn't grow up a fan, so I did not rush out to see the movies when they came out. And having mostly heard about the movie through Horror Noire, I was expecting, I guess, a more expecting more of a black cast. Kind of like I watched Tales from the Hood the other night, and that's a predominantly black cast. Most of the films in Horror Noire is predominantly black casts that of this '90s period. So I was kind of surprised that there were only two black women in the cast. But the main character, no, she's not the main character. Okay, so this one's gonna have to come with a spoiler, and I'm gonna apologize. I try not to give spoilers about the ending of films, but it is a final girl film. So because of that, I think that's what makes this more important in black horror canon, is because you have a black final girl. And aside from some of the interpretations of some of the 70s blaxploitation stuff, I think this may be the only other instance by then of 95, right? Yeah, 95, of a black final girl. So I think this may be really why this movie is so prevalent in the discussions of black horror, especially in the 90s. So she's not the central character, she's not the star of the film, but she becomes a more important character as it moves on, and that's Jada Pinkett. And I say Jada Pinkett, not Jada Pinkett Smith, because it's before she was Jada Pinkett Smith. This actually, I think Demon Knight is before. Yeah, it's 95, and the Matrix films were in the 2000s. So therefore, I think that's when I started seeing her name as Jada Pinkett Smith. So, right, so we have Jada Pinkett. Let's go through the cast a little bit. So we got Jada Pinkett Smith, who, right, she was in the two Matrix sequels. Who else we have? We have Billy Zane. Okay, so Billy Zane is kind of the main villain of this film, and honestly, gonna be frank, he has a lot of fans, and I did not get it. And I was like, you mean the dude from The Shadow, I think it was? No, the Phantom. The Phantom that really failed post Dick Tracy. We're going to start making old-timey comic book character movies that totally bombed. That was him, Billy Zane in The Phantom. And then the only other thing I really knew him from was, I know he's a jerk in Titanic. I'm not a fan of the film Titanic. I've seen it more times than I would ever like to admit, because it's an Oscar film that people bring up a lot, and because of certain friends that I have, I've seen it more than once. But anyway, that's all I knew Billy Zane from, those two things. I'm like, why does he have such a big fan base? Because he does do some of the conventions sometimes. Seeing this movie now, I understand why he has a fan base. He's a very enigmatic villain. He's essentially, I guess, an upper tier demon who has been tasked to reclaim a relic. And the person that he's chasing with the relic is William Sadler. So William Sadler is on the side of good. He is trying to keep this holy relic safe from the demons. And it is a key that encases what had been the blood of Christ. And there's this whole thing about how this has been passed down for generation to generation, and he is the most recent protector of the key, which is all a cool concept. So Sadler, though, to me, I know he's done many, many movies, but to me, William Sadler will always be Death from Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. But just to round that out a little bit, he's also in Shawshank, he was in The Mist. I believe he was in the movie VFW that I recently reviewed. Yeah, he's a really good character actor, and it was nice seeing him as the lead, and he did a very good job. Who else do we have? We have Jada Pinkett, William Smith, Thomas Hayden Church. He's the guy that's the guy from Wings. They always say, you know that guy from Wings, Thomas Hayden Church. But also, I can't see him now and not think he's the Sandman from Spider-Man 3, which means, yeah, my kid's got asthma. You know, my kid's got asthma. That's all he did in that whole movie, guys. Sorry. Anyway, I digress. Dick Miller is in this film. So Dick Miller has been around, well, he had been around forever by then. Most notably, for my generation, he will always be the old guy who shows up in Gremlins, Explorers, Goonies. I think he's in Goonies also. The Burbs. Yeah, he's just in tons of stuff. A very character actor with a very great face, you know. So Dick Miller, that's a good score. Charles Fleischer, yes. So he's the voice of Roger Rabbit, so it was really cool to see him in this. For other horror geeks, you're going to notice that he was the doctor at the sleep clinic in Nightmare on Elm Street. Small part, I guess, in this one, but, you see his face and you're like, it's that guy. Yeah. But anyway, this was a movie of me going, it's that guy. Something about the 90s. I don't know. I just know they're all character actors. Another person about CCH Pounder. She's kind of the woman who runs the hotel, whatever it is. I think it's a hotel that the whole story pretty much takes place in. She, if you're a fan of the Sci-Fi Channel series Warehouse 13, she's one of the leaders in that. So all big, all the actors pretty much stuck out. The cast was rounded out by Brenda Bakke, Bakke. I'm going to say that's Bakke, who has been in a million things, but did not particularly stand out to me, as opposed to all these other people who did. So, one other thing I wanted to say is because this is a Tales from the Crypt movie, I was impressed to see that essentially all of the producers and executive producers were fairly intact from the series. So it does show a quality kind of expectation. And just a quick rundown, just really quick, on who the people behind Tales from the Crypt were, and I had to go back and look at this because I hadn't really thought about it in a long time. So you have Gilbert Adler was a producer. He was the producer of the series, but he was also a producer of Freddy's Nightmares. Joel Silver was the producer of the Matrix films and also the Predator films. All these producers, by the way, amongst many, many things, right? David Giler, he produced all the Alien films. And then you have your executive producers that were really of note. Like, there's these three biggies, right? You have Walter Hill, who directed The Warriors, and, he was also another producer on the Alien films. You have Robert Zemeckis, the guy who made the Back to the Future movies, right? But tons and tons of stuff it seems like so much of cool sci-fi geeky things that came out in the 80s and 90s he had his foot in somehow. And then the name that really kind of blew me away was, I guess, maybe someone I hadn't really noticed as a name when I was younger, was Richard Donner. Now, Richard Donner is behind so many things that I love. So, the original Superman movie, which is one of the few Superman movies I like. But more importantly, he's the person who made Goonies, The Omen, and my favorite Christmas movie of all time, Scrooged. So this is all of this was just to say how big the people behind making this movie was. And it's impressive when you look at it, right? All of these people led up to this film. How did I feel about the film? The film was pretty good, pretty action-packed, but it lagged in the middle, and that really killed it for me. It had a very good premise. Like I said, you have this kind of this religious relic, but it's also at the same time very much there's a term, and I believe I should have looked this up, but I did not. I apologize. Chaz Ballin, I believe, started the concept of the Spam in a House, which is a entire movie basically that takes place within one place. And this hotel is the place that this entire movie takes place in, and it is gory as well. So it is in that way a Spam in a House film. But it is a group of people banding together, much like Night of the Living Dead or any of the Deads. It's the group of people who are left to be tasked with holding back the evil forces. That's a Spam in a House. And also has to be particularly gory. So in this, Billy Zane's character, kind of brings out these demons that he spawns from his own acidic blood, that become the kind of his minions that are trying to fight the folks to get the relic back. And they're pretty well done. I mean, very kind of veiny, kind of almost reminded me of Pumpkinhead, very much in the style that they were, but in that very gooey special effects, like everything kind of had like glug, glug, that kind of thing. You know what I'm talking about. You watch horror movies, yeah. But so yeah, it had a very Pumpkinhead kind of feel, very kind of goopy gore, and the whole thing was you had to shoot them in the eyes for their power to be exerted. So um, it was a good premise. It was good action. It was very standard fare, I would say, for the 90s. In many ways, the story is bookended by Crypt Keeper segments, where he has gone Hollywood and the Crypt Keeper is shooting his own film. And those sequences were, I'm going to just say, they were cringeworthy because it was very much like him with a bunch of bimbos making a movie. And it's like the biggest fake boobs I'd ever seen in my life. Yeah, see, this is still HBO in the 90s. There's, even if it's a film, there's lots of bare-breasted women, which is a little rough. And you realize we don't see that as much anymore, which was a positive thing. It's also these kind of ridiculously proportioned women, the kind of stereotypes of the 80s that bled into the 90s, of these perfect model-like girls with the long blonde hair and wearing high heels, but kind of almost never anything else, and boobs forward, and that was a rough thing, but that was more like bookend. There's a dream sequence that goes very deep into that as well. Each of the main characters is kind of Billy Zane's character tries to seduce them, and essentially kind of like a dream sequency kind of fantasy. And Dick Miller's does kind of indulge in that, which is very expected of the time. I can't lie. But aside from that, my only real, because I almost, and this is horrible to say, I almost don't count that against because of the period it was made in. It was very specifically something coming from HBO. That does not surprise. What took away more from me was that the dragginess middle portion of the film, there's a thing where they go off into the mines. They find an entrance to an old mine, and it served no purpose. It was filler, and it made the film feel longer than it was. But otherwise it's a very solid film. It's just felt draggy in the middle, which is common. Not all film stories are really made to be an hour and a half, but particularly in that time period, we were very much stuck in those confines. So there was filler. It is what it is, right? Typical 90s fare. As far as the characters in the film, I just want to go through quickly. It had so many of the tropes, so many of the stereotypes of what we expect, right? So you have the throwaway blonde, I call her. She's this kind of over-sexualized chick who she doesn't really have a lot to add to the story at times. There's one moment where she's attacked by a demon and she tries to fight back and instantly is almost punished for that and regrets it and goes back to her role that she's supposed to have. So that was like, oh, no, screw that. We're gonna go back to what you expect. So I was, not offended, but like, oh, okay, so we didn't break any ground there. Other things, there's the white blonde dude. He's the dumb white blonde dude who kind of comes across like he could have been like a surfer or a biker. They couldn't decide which way they wanted to go, but he's very much there just for himself and doesn't care really about the other characters, even though he's supposedly with the throwaway blonde chick. So very much a stereotype. Again, you have it was Cece Pounder. She plays the matriarch of the film. She's an older black woman who is that tough as nails matriarch. She was very good, and I really enjoyed her character because she had a lot of balls. It's just the way to say it. She was good, even though she was in a confine. I thought she did very well to kind of rise above it. So that was cool. Like I said, Dick Miller, but in this, he's kind of the failure in town. He's kind of the old drunk. Just kind of, it's another to check off the list of who you have to have when you have these groups, right? Um, there's the Fleischer plays the postal worker, who is a stereotype of a postal worker because he's just the town loser, and he, you're waiting for him to go postal, and there's evidence that he was getting ready to go postal, so it's like another stereotype checked off, and then even though her character really has a path and has a purpose, she leads towards a purpose. Jada Pinkett's character, she's still in these confines of being an ex-con. So she's working for the hotel. So the woman who owns the hotel has brought her in on a kind of exchange program to kind of help ex-prisoners kind of readjust back to society. And she spends most of the movie being like pounded on and degraded by the woman who takes her in. So she's constantly reminded her place, right? And then seeing her break away from that and being able to kind of move outside of that was nice to see her journey. And I think she ends up being very, very strong. Not that she's not strong in the beginning, but she's strong with someone constantly adding her baggage to her, trying to be stronger. So she doesn't have an evolution, and I did enjoy that. I think Dickerson does a good job with what he's given. I'm not sure if this is the story he would have told if he wrote it. But I did enjoy it. I thought it was a well-made movie. And I understand the importance of Jada Pinkett's character, but I'm not entirely sure if there's super importance of the rest of the film, I guess, in kind of like the idea of the horror noir canon. And I think probably the thing that is just in my mind the whole time watching this, was a year later in '96, From Dusk Till Dawn comes out. And it's such a similar movie, and it does it so well that I don't know if it's just this was a typical scenario, and we just changed who the monster of the week is, and it worked better in From Dusk Till Dawn, but I don't know if that's also, From Dusk Till Dawn's cast made it better, or From Dusk Till Dawn's a movie with 2 directors, so that made it better. But it's hard because of the competition that a movie like that is going to have. So in '95, and then a year later, a very similar movie. So, but so I mean, I liked it. I rented it on Amazon Prime, and I would recommend checking it out. I think most horror fans will enjoy, and that's Demon Knight. So I'll see you next time on the Horror Academic.